All right, let's get right into it. Every once in a while, a politician says something so incredibly blunt, so raw, that it just blows the doors off a decades-long relationship between countries. Today, we're going to unpack one of those exact moments, a statement out of Pakistan that is just dripping with a sense of betrayal and anger towards its old ally, the United States.
And there it is. Wow. Just take a second to let that sink in. Pakistan's Defense Minister Khawaja Asif didn't just say his country was used like toilet paper, he said it was treated worse. I mean, this isn't your standard diplomatic spat, this is personal, it's insulting, and he said it for the entire world to hear.
And you've got to get the setting for this. This wasn't some hot mic moment or leaked memo. Nope. This was a formal speech, delivered right on the floor of the Pakistani parliament. This was official, it was public, and it was absolutely designed to make a splash. But, believe it or not, that toilet paper comment, that was just the headline. The full speech was packed with a whole list of other explosive claims that really show you the depth of this resentment. Yeah, he was just getting started. He claimed that Pakistan's own fallen soldiers are disrespected, which is a really painful subject. Then, he throws out this staggering and unsubstantiated number that the U.S. is somehow responsible for the deaths of 100 to 120 million Muslims. And he even got specific, bringing up the targeting of Gaddafi's son, to paint this picture of the U.S. as this relentless aggressor.
Okay, so here's where things get really interesting. This speech wasn't just him pointing fingers at the United States. In a pretty wild twist, it was also a kind of confession about Pakistan's own policies over the last few decades.
He literally said it himself, "We rented ourselves out." I mean, think about that phrasing. He's openly admitting that Pakistan willingly got into a business deal with the United States. They were offering up their services for a price.
And what does that sound like? Well, the source we're looking at points out that he's basically calling his own country a mercenary, a hired gun in a global fight. That is a shocking thing for a defense minister to say out loud. He's framing them not as a partner, but as a soldier for hire.
And he didn't just leave it at that. He actually laid out how they did it. He confessed that Pakistan changed its own national identity to fit America's agenda. They changed the very definition of jihad in school books and retooled their entire education system, all to get their own people on board with the US-backed war against the Soviets right next door in Afghanistan.
And then he drops this bombshell, a total rewrite of history. He claims the Soviet move into Afghanistan back in 1979, yeah, that wasn't an invasion. He says it was an invitation. He's dismissing one of the defining events of the Cold War as nothing more than an American theory. It's just, wow.
So this all leads to the big question, right? After decades of this super complicated alliance, why say all of this now? What was the final straw?
Well, the analysis we're digging into suggests it's a perfect storm of three things. First, good old-fashioned economic jealousy. Pakistan is apparently really frustrated watching its rival, India, get a much better trade deal with the U.S. Second, politics at home. The government's getting heat for being too friendly with Washington, so a speech like this makes them look strong. And finally, it's a convenient way to explain why they're having such a hard time with the Pakistani Taliban. They can just blame it on old U.S. policies.
But of course, it's never that simple, is it? There's always another side to the story. And the analysis we're using here offers a totally different way to look at this, a view where Pakistan isn't just a helpless victim.
So let's just ask the question straight up. Was Pakistan really just used and thrown away? Or was it an active player in this game, with its very own agenda?
And this really breaks it down perfectly. On the one hand, you have the victim story Asif is telling, used, forced, abandoned. But on the other side, you've got this participant narrative, the idea that Pakistan went into this with its eyes wide open. They actively signed up because they wanted US dollars, and maybe more importantly, they wanted American support against their main rival, India. So not a victim, but a player making a calculated move. And history shows there were other paths they could have taken. India reached out for peace several times over the years. You had Prime Minister Vajpayee's famous bus trip to Lahore, and Prime Minister Manmohan Singh calling his counterpart a man of peace. These were real opportunities for regional stability, but Pakistan chose to stick with its U.S. alignment instead.
So where does all this lead? Well, it brings us right to today, and to a very uncertain, very fractured future for this incredibly important relationship.
At the end of the day, when you boil it all down, it really comes back to one powerful single feeling. Deep, deep disappointment. The feeling in Pakistan right now seems to be that, after all the compromises,
After all the sacrifices, they just never got the respect or the support they thought they'd earned from the United States. And man, it has to sting to then sit back and watch your biggest rival, India, land all these great deals with that very same partner.
So what's the big takeaway? Was this whole outburst just a politician trying to score points at home? Or are we seeing something much bigger here? Is this an entire nation starting to come to terms with its past and rethink its place in the world? That's the real question this whole moment leaves us with.